And we are live. Welcome, folks. This is episode 61. We are going to be doing community and death work with Hawke. It's going to be just myself as the main host tonight at the moment because our wayward Malik is running a little bit behind. Not a problem. So, by way of starting this off right, I have here a horn of mead. And since community and death work is going to be one of the themes we tackle, I think it's very appropriate to have not only this mead here, but also this prayer is coming to mind. Holy ones in the grave, in the mound, beneath our feet. Holy ones who are long since dead, who make up the dirt beneath our feet. We thank you. We thank you for what you have laid down with your lives, with your work, with your hands, with your hearts. We thank you for what you have brought forward into this world. And we wish you rest. We hope to be good ancestors ourselves. We wish to do right by the generations that come after. Help us to do so. Let's do how. So what I'm drinking tonight, starting off the evening, is blackberry mead from Schramm's.
Ooh,
nice.
Hummingbird juice.
And I am actually using one of my gifts from Yule from my folks for the first time. This is going to be my offering bowl.
Nice.
So, to the Ginregen.
Hey, y'all, and apologies for being late.
Exactly.
You know, it's funny. I think the last time I was on, Sarenth was running late.
You know, that tracks, honestly. Look, you can't have 3 ADHDers in a room without at least one of them being late. It's a rule.
God, you're so right. I will say, my plant lights should be turning off in a little bit. So if it suddenly goes dark on that half of the screen, that's why. It's no big deal.
Fine. No worries. So what are you drinking, Hawke?
I am drinking Middle East Coast. It's in Traverse City, and it's called Sleeping Berry. It's a raspberry sour ale.
Nice.
I got the classification right. It is like drinking a can of sour Skittle raspberry, and it is my favorite thing in the world.
That sounds delightful.
I also have strawberry soju when the can runs out.
Ooh.
That was a brave choice.
I love soju.
I believe you. It's not because I think soju is bad to drink. It's because, much like tequila, soju has a reputation.
Listen, I'm good as long as I don't go more than like 2 bottles in a day.
Fair enough.
It's fine. Don't worry about it.
You gonna take a shot for that?
I can. Because you're supposed to soju in a shot glass. It probably doesn't show up, but if you shake this right, you can make a tornado. And that's the proper way to open it.
Oh.
For the uneducated, including myself, what is shoju exactly?
Soju is it's Korean. It's a lot like sake, I believe.
Okay.
I believe it's rice. And it's so this is 375 milliliters, and it's 12%.
Okay,
nice.
That's actually not too bad.
There are many flavors. Strawberry tends to be my favorite, followed by either apple or lychee. And my roommate really likes the peach.
I can see that. I am drinking a Mai Tai that I just shook up. It's delicious. Also, I made it incorrectly because it's supposed to be Mai Tais are supposed to be served on the crushed ice that they're shaken with, and I don't do that because I don't like ice in my drinks because I'm pretentious.
It's fine. That's why we love you.
Mai Tais are also delicious, which I found out recently because I made a Mai Tai for the first time like a little while ago. They're fucking amazing. Yeah, people should try them.
And not the only Mai Tai I ever had is the ones that you get like the pouch from like Kroger, where you throw in the freezer for a little bit and they become a slushy, and then you take them out and drink them like a Capri Sun.
Yeah, this is hurting Malik.
Don't do that. That is not a Mai Tai. That is awful. In much the same way that those aren't margaritas either.
They're sugar.
Yeah, right.
Some alcohol.
Ooh, neat. Traditional soju is rice and nuruk. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly.
I believe you are, which is a fermentation starter.
That's fucking cool.
That is cool. Yeah, Mai Tai is very simple, actually. It is orgeat, which is a almond-flavored simple syrup, basically.
My stupid ass heard almond and instead put the word omen.
Yes.
Omen flavored syrup. I don't know.
I mean,
considering Malik.
Yeah.
Is it not?
It is. But so almond syrup, basically, lime juice and rum, shaken together. You have your Mai Tai. I'm
Nice.
simplifying it very slightly, but sorry, I'm missing a key ingredient actually entirely, which is orange curacao. So you know.
Okay, I've had curacao before. I don't remember what the hell it is.
It is curacao is a sweet orange liquor. Either liqueur or liquor, depending on the variety you get. I tend to use Grand Marnier, which is cognac based, and is 40%, so it's a liquor instead of liqueur, which tend to be sweeter and less alcohol.
So liqueurs are also higher in volume ABV, correct?
No, liqueurs are higher in sugar, lower in alcohol by volume.
Okay, it's the other way around. Thank you.
Yes. Mine, because I pour drinks at Malik's strength, is there's 5 ounces of hard liquor in this glass.
You drink like me, and that just makes for old men. It's okay.
Yeah. Also, because I'm stupid.
You're pretty, not stupid.
I'm both. My almond flavored syrup tastes like Nope on the horizon. That is hilarious. And also divine with the syrup. Yes. My rum of choice these last couple weeks has been what used to be Plantation and is now Plantaray, because they changed the name because I didn't want to be associated with plantations, which, hey, fair enough.
Put on them. I wouldn't want to be either.
Right? But it's Plantaray OFTD, Old Fashioned Traditional Dark, which is a 69% ABV rum.
Holy shit.
That's one of your funky rums, right? The one where like established anyone else saying, "Oh, this tastes funky. I'm only accepting it from you."
It's got a little bit of funk to it, not a lot. The one that you're thinking of is Dr. Bird, which is like 43%.
Funky. That was an experience.
It is extremely funky. Dr. Bird is extremely funky. The best way to describe Jamaican rum funk that I have ever heard is the oil from banana peels that are old, dark, and brown and rotting in the sun. But but good, but positive. Like, I don't know. It is an experience. It is
motherfucker. What?
I know exactly what that sounds like, and it sounds terrible. I know. It is really delightful for some people. for some people, it's immediately like, no, this is awful, and hey, so is whiskey.
Listen, it's in the same way that Malort is good for some people. If you have the Constitution.
Yeah, kind of. Although Malort is also just like hyper bitter, and this isn't. So like,
I can't say shit. I drink Old Crow.
I know.
I don't just drink it. I actively like it. So
you have
know.
On air, while choking on Old Crow, said, "God, that's smooth," and that is one of my favorite memories from this show.
I do remember.
I love you, Malik.
I love you so much. That is a thing that happened. It is preserved on the internet.
Listen, we all have our alternative fuel drink that we ride and die with. Probably die, but it's okay.
Well, speaking of crows and ravens and corvids, the carving on this is absolutely appropriate.
That's the one I got you.
Beautiful.
Yes, it is.
Good. You cleaned that out really well, right?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah. Why do you ask?
Because that was left unattended for many years.
No, I definitely cleaned it out, and I definitely washed it out.
Good.
Don't you worry. But, it's kind of like coffee. Each layer just brings flavor.
When one of the flavors is mold.
Or botulism.
You both are so bad for my heart. Do you know that? I need you to know that. I love you guys dearly. So bad for my heart.
So anyway, did we have a topic for today, or we
sure did. Community and death work, believe it or not.
Oh, okay. I mean, yeah,
it's right there in the subtitles.
It's right there in the thing. Yeah, I can read. I just don't.
It's all good. I understand.
Picking on the dead and then poking at the living. The two things that I am most known for.
Yeah, drink many, many things, sir. This is true. Flavor, air quotes, flavor.
Yeah. I am glad the horn is treating you well, though.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So anyway, community and death work. So I enjoy tackling these together because sooner or later, you're gonna die.
Yes.
So knowing what you're gonna do and who's gonna do what is kind of important.
Oh, I agree. I know that you worked more on the physical plane with Deathworks, Saren. I've always worked more on the other side of the veil.
The Shadow Realm.
The Shadow Realm. And it's one of those. The more I think back, because I was raised by Catholic witches, essentially.
Nice.
The more I look back, the more I'm like, I've just been doing death work my whole goddamn life. Okay. And semi-recently, I've gotten my cousin to start doing ancestor work because she is a lot more in tuned psychic-wise. So if they can't get my attention, they'll go to her. And then
it's nice having more than one person.
Yeah. There was a point to this, and I forgot. The ADHD.
So, what kinds of? So you haven't really interacted with the physical side of it. What kind of death work? When you hear the word death work? Let's just start at basics.
Yeah. What does that mean?
What the hell is death work?
So when I say I haven't worked on the physical side, is I am a very easy crier, which, for as good as I am at paperwork, it's a little hard to be like typing up itineraries for a funeral while you're also crying with the people.
Yep.
So what I do on like the physical side is when I go to a funeral, as long as it is not for someone that was close to me, I will find a place kind of off to the corner. And because I'm an easy crier, I am already crying. And that draws other people to me, specifically people who are like the, I have to cry in private.
Right.
I am, as you can see, female bodied. So it helps break down a lot of the, we'll call it machismo.
Yeah.
And so like it lets people come down, sit next to me, and then it's okay for them to cry because I'm crying, and then they're offering me comfort. Um, on the other side of that, when it's someone close to me who passes, because you can't be everything for yourself, nor should you. That's where community comes in. Nephthys, the goddess, is that for me. Because she of the house, she who comforts mourners. So if I cannot be the griever, the wailer, she does that for me. And then from there, it becomes a matter of providing. It's usually water. I don't get a lot of food requests from the dead. I don't. It's got to be like a birthday or something for alcohol, and that is because I come from a line of alcoholics. The dead can't behave themselves sometimes, and so they don't get it. So it's coffee, water, tea. Sometimes I'll get like I said, like a little shooter, and I'll put it on there. And if they start acting a fool, I take it away. Can't behave at the family reunion. Not allowed to have it.
We lost a Sarenth.
Oh no.
This also happened last time where Sarenth accidentally ended the show. And we had to do a 2.0.
Yeah. So it looks like this is still live. There we go.
Yep, we are still live. Yes, Sarenth is coming back in. Muted, but
They were having issues with headphones
okay.
in the pre-show.
That makes sense. So I'm going to say something and you're going to hate me for it, but it's super appropriate. So you're basically what you're describing is Goetia work in the oldest sense.
Yes.
Yeah.
You can't hurt me with that. I hurt myself with that like a year and a half ago when I found it.
Good. Okay. Good. Glad I didn't have to break that bubble for you.
Listen, I know we like to sling grenades at one another of homework, but I beat you to this one.
You jumped on that grenade before I could throw it at you. Got it.
Yeah.
Oh no. So Sarenth just messaged me. Give me 1 second to read it fully. I should still be on camera, ideally. Audio app decided now is a good time to drop and install everything. Lovely. I am so sorry, Sarenth.
Oh no. I'm so sorry. I tend to be the cursed guest.
You know what? It happens, and whatever. It'll be all right. Sarenth will get back on in a minute, and in the meantime, we'll just trade barbs, and it's fine. But really, given your relationship with Hades and is Thoth associated with the dead?
Yes. He is part of the weighing of the heart.
Gotcha.
However, the ways in which I interact with Thoth is more the writer, the poet, moon and magic. So yes, there is the weighing of the heart aspect, and I have been drug in to experience weighing of the heart because that is, what a tool in my belt now.
Yeah.
I have only twice, I think, been in those halls.
Okay. I assume you are also thinking of the time that I'm thinking of.
That's 3, actually. Thank you for reminding me.
You're welcome. Because that was terrifying for all of us. We're gonna not talk about that because that's a whole thing.
That's a whole thing.
But yeah, it does make a lot of sense that you do Goetia work in the which I'm certain I'm mispronouncing the original word.
It's all Greek to me.
God damn it. I hate you so much. Hey, Sam, welcome back.
Yeah, I'm glad I came back for that. Well done.
Yeah. So we were talking about how Hawke does Goetia work as a professional mourner, spirit worker, and that makes a lot of sense given their relationship with Hades and Thoth. Although less Thoth and more Hades, but yes.
I also collect death deities. Like, I read off the list of deities that I interact with, that I have cultists with, that I know in passing, and I sound like the most Tumblr try-hard person. And so
Yeah,
just,
no, actually, and now that I'm thinking
understand.
about it, on Morrigan as well, I feel like would vibe really well with the professional whaler.
Yes.
Yeah.
I get her as sovereign queen, high general, and then on the occasion, the banshee.
Yeah. That is very interesting. I have, despite my best efforts, recently increasingly had I had a spirit who is, I'm not going to talk too much about it, but through the pack tradition, there are a group of spirits that are very close to individuals. It is absolutely incorrect to say that they are spirit guides in the sense of like neo shamanism or spiritualism, but as a public gloss, that isn't. I mean,
in the most technical sense of the word.
Yeah, right. Like technically, this is kind of correct. It makes my mouth taste like bile, but it's for public that's okay.
That's what happens when you're part of a mystery tradition. Is you gotta
No, like,
find
aren't
weird
they
words
spirit
to talk
animals?
about it.
Sarenth, I will jump through the screen and throttle you. I swear. And funny enough, most of the ones that are close to me are not. There are a couple who have animal faces, but I would not call them animals. That's a whole thing.
I get it. I'm just fucking with you.
Yeah, no, I know you are, but you know, for posterity's sake. Anyway, despite my best efforts to consistently avoid having dealings with the good neighbors as much as possible, one of these spirits,
Stay over there.
one of these spirits is among the good neighbors, and
Considering your fiance. Wow.
yes, true. Although not related, just kind of happened. But
You find one, you find another. It's like glitter. Just look around one day, you're like, fuck.
you know, that's not wrong. And I say that knowing that my fiance
Listen.
in the stream.
I mentioned this a couple weeks ago, I think, where I never intended to be a spirit worker. I was doing my own little thing, and then I started hanging out with y'all, and I looked down, and now I'm the one covered in glitter, and I was like, fuck. All right.
Yeah, you avoided that P word for a long time. Long time. In fact, you specifically, last time you were on the show, you were like, very specifically, I am not a priest.
Yeah, listen, if you can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a title.
How'd that go?
Like dodging a wrench, I imagine.
I don't remember where I was going with this. We're just rambling at this point. I'm fine with it. Sometimes we have good focused conversations, and sometimes we're all drinking and just throwing knives at each other, or wrenches, or titles.
I think one of the things that I really was interested in exploring, because community is such a big part of death work, is where do you see the intersection, especially in your work, with community? And you've mentioned before about the grieving process and being a GOES. And I'm curious if there's other ways that you see the interaction and see the interplay there between community and death work.
For me, it's everything. Um, so if you think about like the standard funeral process, someone passes away, then you reach out to your community, their community. Sometimes it's a Venn diagram, sometimes it's a circle, sometimes there's multiple circles. And then not theoretically, hopefully everyone comes together, and you provide like the food, the water for like the luncheon and everything. I don't know about you guys, but I was the oldest child for a long time. So like when the little kids and the cousins and stuff got rowdy, I would herd them off to someplace, so that their parents, who by sheer numbers game were probably closer to the deceased and the grieving than I was, were able to do that. And then you have the after the funeral. After you go, you bury and disperse. It's less practice these days, where people would come and be like, you get a dozen casseroles, to help you get through the morning time. But you do have those close people who come in and they check on you, maybe not every day, maybe not every other day, but like once a week, bi-weekly. They call you like, hey, I know you haven't gotten out of bed. Put on some deodorant, scrub your teeth. I'm going to take you out. We're going to walk around Target for 20 minutes. And so you can't ever fill a hole that has been created, but you can, I guess, embroider the edges around it so it doesn't stretch out and break further, if that makes sense.
That does. I really like that analogy, actually.
I do a lot of textile work, if you don't notice.
No, but that's a fantastic analogy, because it's not just, it is both functional and it is both about the functional, right? You're making it so that it does not break out, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the hole does not become larger, but also you are making it beautiful and in a ritualized fashion, right? There is a protocol, a way that this is done.
Yes.
I like that a lot. Thank you. That's a fantastic analogy. Aside from the work that you do, that is a fantastic analogy.
So you mean that to tell me that hospitality is directly influenced and directly involved with community and death work? Fucking weird.
Who knew? And frankly, I don't think we do enough of it.
Agreed. I mean, although this overculture is real shit grief.
Yes.
And you can point at any number of reasons why. The thing that really kind of gets my goat, though, is when people insist that your grief has to be over, or that there's an endpoint to it.
There's no endpoint to grief. You will be mourning that thing until well after you are dead, most likely.
There is a picture where it says, you don't grow past grief, you grow around it, and it shows like a ball inside of a cup, and then there's several in a line, and it grows bigger into like a big jar, and the ball stays the same size, but the jar gets bigger around it. And I feel that is probably the best visualization that I can think of. Is, you've always got this, but it doesn't have to take up as much room over time. Even even a place that has been taken over by wildfire will regrow. Yeah. But you've still got the ashes of the dirt.
Yeah. This is a piece of the overculture that is, I think, quite insidious is the separation of the dead from community, where in more animistic cultures that have held on to ancestor worship and etc., the idea that the dead are gone from us entirely, that they are not still a part of our community, is frankly ridiculous. And I, being on this side of paganism, also it is, knowing what I know and having experienced what I have experienced, it seems silly to me to discount the dead as part of your community. And it is objectively painful that our society has separated the dead from the living in the way that it has, because it is harmful to both the dead who want to connect and or have needs, and also to the living who can only mourn the dead as a thing gone and not as separated but still present.
I will say they have tried, but there is always the yes, a lot of people think of, they're dead, they're gone. Oh, but that noise up there, that's just Aunt Phyllis. Oh, that little spot over there, that's really nice to read, and sometimes it gets like a really cool breeze. That's Uncle Joe. Don't worry about it. So it becomes like this double think of they're dead, they're gone, they're in a better place, and also, asshole, if you shake my cups again, we're gonna have problems.
Yeah, no, and that's completely fair. And I say that a good friend of mine, who I actually haven't spoken to in a number of years, but that's not the point, who is exceedingly Christian, and exceedingly Protestant Christian, very specifically, and also very much to her bones a scientist. So like the almost perfect intersection of atheism and also Christianity. Her family has a family story about how grandma, when she died, became an angel, because everyone in the family knows in their bones that grandma is still around and doing things. And I sat down and my spooky ass was like, yeah, okay, and just doing readings for her because she was having problems, and she was like, I need help. And I was like, look at that, I can help.
Yep.
So I was doing readings for her, and her grandmother came through so very strongly that I actually had to do some like, hey, you need to stop, because we did not agree to that. We did not negotiate that. You are no.
As grandmothers tend to do.
It happened.
Fucking with her baby.
Right? But anyway, her grandmother was very much still around and very much still present. So like, yeah, her entire family, despite being of that persuasion, like her entire family is like engineers, scientists, Protestant Christians who are all on the borderline atheist. They all still believe grandma's still around and doing things. And I'm like, yeah, your grandma wants to have coffee with you at least once a week. And she started having coffee with her grandmother at least once a week. That's the only thing she really does. I hope she's still doing it. Anyway. But yeah. I don't know.
The dead, especially the beloved dead, those who are close to us, grandparents, parents, siblings, and whatnot, they want to be close to us because not only are they beloved to us, but we are beloved to them. And, everyone has it's kind of like, why did you stop coming and visiting me? Why did you stop calling? Except where in like the human realm, it's like, well, the phone works both ways. We're both in the wrong. If they're dead, it only kind of works one way unless you find someone or they find someone and tap us and go, hey, time to call me.
Or they start shaking the cups and causing you problems.
Stop.
Destiny has an interesting quote on this. Red Cardinal is Granny saying hi. Big thing around here. Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah. Red cardinals are, for a lot of folklore, and I don't remember where it comes from. It might just be Appalachia, but I could be wrong about that. Red cardinals are heavily associated with the dead and ancestors, and in a lot of folklore, red cardinals is if you are seeing red cardinals, it's your dead coming to visit and saying hi.
Mm-hmm.
I got that mixed up one time when you were having bird signs, and I was like, "It's this," and I was like, "No, that's the wrong species. I'm completely incorrect. Do not pay attention to what I just said."
Oh, I was being followed by just the most gangster set of robins. They were big, they were fat, they were following me everywhere, and I was like, "Can I help you?" Never figured out what they wanted, but at some point they were just like, "We're gonna go harass someone else." And considering I work at one of the automotive buildings in Dearborn, usually the birds that are trying to square up with you are fucking geese. So like, I'm used to like a goose and like having to grab my backpack and being like, "All right, are we partying today?" But I was not prepared for robins.
You know what's absolutely hilarious to me? Hawke and I used to live in the same apartment complex, and prior to that, I used to live in an apartment complex like 2 blocks away from the Ford where they work. Yeah, it is deeply
passing in the night.
Just 100%.
It's too dangerous for us to live close for too long.
Nice.
Can you imagine the shenanigans, especially with Sarenth, also like a handful of minutes away?
Yeah.
Bermuda Triangle of nonsense.
It really is. What was I saying? I had a thought. It is
poof.
Either it is gone. It does not help that I am about halfway through this Mai Tai.
I believe in you.
That's one of us.
So I am actually going to pick y'all's brains about a couple questions.
Cool.
Do it.
Because I assume eventually they will circle back around. So Sarenth, I read your post the other day.
Yes.
And
which one?
No, the ethics, the good spirit workers.
Oh, that was a lot of fun to write.
Yep.
And so since we're speaking on community, I would love to hear your thoughts on duty, because I am very much a duty-driven person. Duty for, family, for the community, what we owe to our people, and in converse, what our community owes to us who do work for them. Because I am of the firm belief that if you let someone in your community do so much that they exhaust themselves and you do not help, you do not get to be in the community. Or, it's not like an immediate exercise. It's like, we got to have a talk here. So I would like to know y'all's opinions.
Hey, Sarenth, how was that hospital stay the little while ago?
I don't know what you're talking about. Not at all.
You don't? Are you sure?
Nope. Mm-mm. So, okay. Part of the reason that happened the way it did was because I was working so much overtime and I was burning out because of it. Wasn't hydrating enough, clearly. But also I got sick.
You did. You picked up a bug.
I got sick bad.
And don't get me wrong, the combo of any kind of GI sickness plus diabetes is an extremely dangerous combination and is liable to land, frankly, anyone in the hospital. And I will not, as a medical professional, will not take that away from you. Like, that is an extremely dangerous combination, full stop.
I hear the butt coming.
How many projects were you working on at that time?
Let's see.
Can you count them on both hands?
Well, we'll see. So I was helping, or have helped organize Ann Arbor Pagan Pride for the last 10 years that it's been around. I was part of the board of directors for a nonprofit. Did that for 6 years. That ended in December.
but at the time,
I'm just saying, I was writing my blog. I was working, father, partner.
we're going to count 2 for partner because you have multiple partners, and
That's right.
I have 4, but so
I said what I said.
we're
No,
up to what, 8? So
7.
spirit work.
Okay, so just your personal practice spirit work. Okay.
Spirit work for others.
Okay.
Working on my book at the time.
Okay. So we're on to 10.
Add another one because it was just one book.
Okay.
So
no. We're not done.
oh.
We're not even close. AGF.
around grandfather fire.
3 pots.
3 pots.
You were working on at least one project specifically for the Troth.
Yes, this is true. That's right.
You were also, I believe, being a community leader for the Troth, aside from the esoteric program.
Oh, that's right. I was. I had to step away from all that after I got out of the hospital. Well, actually, when I got into the hospital, I kind of stepped away from all that.
So we're now at 15, and that's just shit that I know about personally.
That's off the dome.
Yeah, that's just off the top. That's just right off the top.
So
Sarah, this is why I lovingly bully you so much. No, sit down. I'll grab this for you because.
And quite frankly, we should add an extra one because your job generally has you working enough overtime to count as at least a full-time and a part-time, and generally as 2 full-times.
Yeah, this last couple of this last 2 months has been weird.
Yeah, because you've only been working what, like 60 hours a week?
Maybe.
Yeah. So again, that's a full-time plus a part-time. You know that, right?
you get so used from tumbling out of bed, going right back into work, and going, "Oh God, why?" That it feels really fucking weird to suddenly have a bunch of days where it's dead air, or at least it feels like dead air because you're so used to being on the clock. Because I was pulling almost 160 hours in a 2-week period at one point. It was really bad.
So again,
that was not voluntary. I should point out that was not voluntary at all.
No, again, we're talking about 16 different things right off the top of the head that you were working on, to the point that very genuinely your life was in danger.
Right.
Having talked your partner through a lot of it. And checking on you constantly because I was worried for your life, and you are family to me. Your life was in danger. You were in medical terms, in laboratory medical terms, which is quite literally.
Yeah, I think it was in there.
It was.
So like 15 things.
Being one of the people who would have been quite literally calling the doctors with your values when your lab test came back.
What?
So critical values, when
oh yeah
right, when lab test values, which is the numbers that come back from the machine, are in life-threatening ranges, they're called critical values, and we have to call those to a doctor or nurse who then has to act on that. And it has to be documented because these are life-threatening numbers. I heard some of the values that your partner was reporting to me while I was at work, and I was like, oh, that's another critical value. Oh, that's multiple critical values.
So it turns out part of the reason why some of those values went the way they did was, ironically, a medication meant to protect my kidneys.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not that I'm making excuses for this, but by way of explanation, one of the things that really jacked me up was one of the medications that works really well at protecting the kidneys until you're in a crisis point, and then it tries to send you into diabetic ketoacidosis, along with whatever else you're dealing with, because your tolerance for the levels of sugar you can handle and all the various other shocks to the system, your levels of tolerance vary because of some of the meds you can be on.
Yep.
So what I could have normally just tanked and went, ha, I'm going home. Fuck you. My body was like, brother, we're going to shut down.
Yeah.
Sarah, listen, I love doing rituals with you. Please don't make me do last rites with you this early. Okay?
No, that is not the intent. So of those things, to that point, I took about, I want to say, a good 7 or 8 off of my plate.
Good.
And I'm still very proud of you.
Very much. And like and all of this is not to like, here, let's pummel Sarenth. Like, I mean, a little bit that, because that's a good time for everyone.
I mean, I'm either going to get it here or Snow is going to give me yet another ration of shit on HEF, so I can pick my poison at this point.
I mean, you deserve it.
This is true.
And Emily threw another one, MTS class as a student.
So 17.
17. That's a good round number. I like that.
Jesus fucking Christ.
You all are so bad for my health.
You've taken many of those projects off yourself, and I'm very glad for that. Like, very genuinely. Like, I'm proud of you for doing that, because you were doing too much and it was putting you in danger.
Right.
That's not a, oh, haha, you do too much. That's a, no, you put yourself in the hospital.
Right.
And I'm going to repeat what I said when you were first starting to take all of this off your plate and whatnot, is if all of these things cannot survive without you shouldering it, they don't deserve to.
Absolutely.
Because not to be like we're built different, but our little group doesn't need to lean super heavy and take all of this from you.
Right.
To function. Most of the time we're trying to pour into you, which kind of circles it back to my idea about duty and community. It can never just be a one-way street.
No, I mean, because it damn near literally killed me.
And that aside, that's not community. That's just one person doing a bunch of shit.
Right. And it's the trap that a lot of NGOs fall into. It's the, what is it, the 5, 15, 75 rule or whatever it is. I'm not good at math. Where 5% of the people do the work, 15% of the people show up and say, tell me what to do exactly. And the other 75% consume the product or whatever.
Yes.
It is the bugbear of how our communities run. And paganism writ large is no exception. Because the shit that I got to listen to when I would sit on meetings for the mech board or for the Troth or for name an organization, the shit they had to deal with was outsized by the volunteers they had available.
Yeah.
And so when people say I'm stepping away, I'm done, I get it. I get it intimately because been there, done that, got the t-shirt, and I've worked for a nonprofit that had amazing amounts of resources. So I know what the ideal situation looks like, and it's still shit for NGOs.
Yeah. What is NGO?
Non-government organization.
Okay.
Nonprofits, basically.
Oh,
not necessarily the same thing, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. Yes. And that's really the thing, though, right? Is like, yes, not everyone in the community will show up 100% of the time. All of that, like, it is unrealistic to expect that. However, because of a variety of reasons, some of them good, some of them bad. However, a community cannot be built on the shoulders of a single person.
No, that way lies cult behavior too.
It does.
If it doesn't burn the person out entirely, it turns them into a cult leader sooner
or
later.
both.
Or both,
frankly. And like none of these are good options.
No. So with regards to the question you posed earlier about duty, I spend a lot of time writing on my blog and talking on AGF about obligation and responsibility. That's duty. Like, writ large, that's duty.
Mm-hmm.
Who am I obligated to? What am I obligated to do? Who am I responsible to? What am I responsible for doing? What does this do? How well does it do it? These are all questions that I ask in the course of my priorities. And And when it comes to priorities, the first priority in my life is the Ginregen, and then my family, and then kindred and larger tribe or clan, and then larger community. That's how my priorities run. So when it comes down to it, when people say, oh, well, I don't have a responsibility to community, I'm like, the fuck you don't. The fuck you don't. Trying to divest yourself from responsibility to the people you live beside is fucking terrible to start with. But also, this hyper individualistic shit is going to get you killed.
It will. And there's a thing that a teacher of mine has said very consistently. It is not the spirits that make the shaman, it is the community.
Right.
It is not being chosen by the spirits as a necessary part, but that will not make you a shaman, right?
Right.
That by itself is not enough. You have to have the teachings, you have to have the support, you have to have the physical life blood people around you who can do all the things that you can't do. Because otherwise, that way lies madness, that way lies death.
It's also important to point out one of the things that's a feature, and anybody can research this if you care to. One of the things that's a feature of specifically Mongolian shamanism, but I think is also a feature of several spiritual specialties, is the shaman is not necessarily the most powerful.
Mm-mm.
They're a hub in the community. They're not necessarily the most powerful. One of the things that is a proverb in Mongolian communities, and I'm paraphrasing this, something to the effect of the blacksmith and the shaman are part of the same flock. And the reason for that is because the blacksmith makes the tools that allows the shaman to work carefully and safely.
Yeah.
For instance, making the armor that the shaman wears during ritual is done by a sacred blacksmith who is especially initiated with their own mysteries that are separate from the shaman.
Yeah. And in many tribes, I don't know, I won't say all tribes, but, we talked about this with David Shee on the show. Right. In many tribes, the blacksmith is able to spiritually overpower a shaman.
Right.
They are considered more spiritually powerful than a shaman is.
It's why when my pagan heathen blacksmith friends say, "Oh, I'm not that great," I just want to beat them out the head and legs with their hammer, because the fuck you aren't. You're making the tools that allow me to do the work.
Right.
And so my obligation to the blacksmith, Patrick, for instance, made my yarn runar, my iron runes, and my yarn staffer, my iron staff. Both of these are fucking premium sacred items to me. Like, they are probably my most precious sacred items. And the process that he went through to craft both of them is amazing. The work he did on them, fucking beautiful. And what I really love about the yarn staffer, especially because I showed him pictures from Neil Price's The Viking Way, where there were yarn staffer in what were assumed to be vulva graves. He took one of those designs and made it. My yarn staffer is directly ancestrally related by design to an iron staff in one of these graves. You can't buy that shit online.
No.
I know, because I fucking looked. Don't get me wrong. There are a lot of beautiful yarn staffer, but the specific design I asked him to do was from that book, was from a assumed vulva's grave.
Yeah.
And there is nothing like somebody handing you a piece they hand wrought.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Well, and I can also very directly speak to that. So Hawke very recently made me not one, but two beautiful pieces of what's called sacred art. So the one is just a casting cloth in the pack tradition. which has quite literally revolutionized not just the way that I do divination, but also how I understand how divination is done. Let me be exceedingly clear.
Thank you.
I have been doing pack tradition divination for years, effectively and powerfully. I have pulled shit that people have that is completely secret that they have never told anyone else. I have pulled shit that people barely knew about themselves. I have made people cry almost every time I have pulled a bone out of my bag. I genuinely thought I was doing quite well with divination. And then I got this casting cloth.
As somebody that has had divination from you, yes.
Yeah.
However,
right, and
you know when you've leveled up because you've bought new equipment or new equipment's been handed to you.
It's been handed to me. That's not. I didn't buy that. Well, okay,
You
technically,
did. It was commissioned.
It was
you wouldn't
commissioned.
let me give it to you for free.
But the point is not the purchase price. The point is this was made by someone in my community who knew what they were doing, had the mysteries, and did the thing
right.
Not just well, but correctly.
Right.
And when I tell you that the amount of effort that I put in is not 10% to do divination like I used to do, and the messages are more clear and more precise and more accurate. I was able to do divination for someone who's generally not able to be divined for by other people because their spirits are hard on anyone who tries to divine for them. I won't say it was a breeze, but this was one, my first time out with the casting cloth, and two, it wasn't super hard. It wasn't the hardest div set I've ever had. And I pulled things out that they had told no one else, and their spouse was in the room and kept saying fuck every time I'd say something else. And I can tell you without a shadow of a doubt, I've barely scratched the surface. Like, I've been doing this for years, and I was like, I'm doing a good job. I don't know everything, but I'm doing a good job. And now I feel like I am a fumbling moron who has barely known anything ever. Because
you have returned to being the fool.
Exactly. And that is all because of the addition of one item that is correctly made.
I'm really curious to see what happens when you start using the other one, the cloth one.
Yeah, that one so far has been happy to be a bundle cloth to hold other sacred objects, but I know that's certainly not all it will do, and we're getting there.
If you don't mind me cutting in real quick, I think one of the intersection between community and death work with this too is if you're not responsible for community, who's going to do your death work?
Yes.
Yeah.
Like
who will say your last rites?
Who's going to bother remembering you?
There is a big thing where a lot of, so I'm gender fluid, gender's fake, but there are some, we'll call them societal lines.
Yeah.
Where when like a mother dies, it's usually a big to-do. Well, put in the little like caveat for bad parents and all of that, set it to the side. There's always the big funeral, the flowers, the big headstones and whatnot. And then for a lot of fathers or men, they don't got anybody because those were not relationships that were cultivated, that they chose to cultivate. So you have a lot of people who are dying in hospitals, retirement homes, nursing homes and such, that they never had anyone visit. And now there's not going to be anyone at their funeral. And it is because they have chased away or they were assholes. And so when they die, the state picks them up. Sometimes they get claimed, sometimes they don't. And if they don't get claimed, They get put into an urn and then a pauper's grave. And then we're like, why is there so many angry spirits? Well, and granted, I'm big on the you fuck around, you find out. If you do not make community, you are not entitled to community. But on the other side of that, as someone who also does, and it's strictly during the first 2 weeks of October, because I got to protect my own peace and sanity, that I will open the ways for the stuck, angry, and restless dead. You guys got 2 weeks, and then after that 2 weeks, it becomes I narrow my focus to my familial and community, and then to my beloved dead the week leading up to Halloween.
Yeah. And it bears mentioning, just as a general caution, that psychopomp work is, in every culture around the world, considered to be extremely dangerous. This is not something to be practiced by people who are not particularly suited for it, for one, and two, particularly called to it. And if you can, get as much training as you can. Like, do not do that if you are not suited, called, and trained.
Death work is straight up dangerous because you're dealing with the death part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, just to be perfectly blunt about it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't recommend most people do it.
Yeah.
And it's not me being an elitist jackass. It's I have been close enough to death with my day job.
Yeah.
That it is corrosive.
Yeah. No. I am a relatively experienced spirit worker in terms of pagan circles, and I do not do death work if I do not have to. I don't do it if I do not have to.
Corrosive is perhaps not the correct term.
I would agree it is. Because it does eat away at you if you do not have your community to bounce you back up.
I feel almost like the more you do death work, the more you really need to do work to be alive. Not because it's corrosive, but because it's really inviting. Like, if you vibe with the death work, it can be really inviting. Because, this flesh mobile is eventually going to decay and go away. It's just a step to the left.
Yeah, to be honest, that was one of the reasons I don't want to say I'm well suited, because I have chronic acute depression, but I have walked that line.
Right.
And so for me, it is dangerous, but I also can take stock and go, oh, I'm too close to the edge, and pull back.
Right.
I'm going to pause right here for just a second and say, folks, trigger warning, we are getting into deep stuff about death, possible self-harm, mental health issues. If these are triggers for you, stop watching now. I apologize, we didn't do this before. If these are triggers for you, stop watching now. Please continue.
You're so right. I did not think to upfront that at the beginning.
No, you're fine. It's one of those, I have been in places where people talking about depression would trigger my depression. I'm not there right now, but I have been in that place. And so I would rather not accidentally set somebody who is in that place off.
Right, especially given time, place, where we're at in the country.
Yes.
I also want to put out there that one of the duties you have in community is to realize fairly early on what your talents are, what your gifts are, what you need to shore up, and how. And I do not mean you need to do this on an individualistic basis. I mean that you as a person in community needs to figure these things out. And this does not mean you go off into the woods and figure it out on your own. This means that you talk with people and you take responsibility for what's yours and let go what's not.
One of the first things that is recommended to pack initiates is to sit down and work on this as a project, like very genuinely, to sit down with diviners, with yourself, with your spirits, and we count spirits as the community, right? As part of the community.
Right.
And it is to sit down and find where you sit in the cosmology. What are your skill sets? And this can change over time, and that's fine.
Right.
But you need to know where you sit. And none of this is judgment based. Where you sit is morally neutral.
Right.
It is just a skill set.
When I started my, I'll pop this in and then I'll let Sarah talk. When I started to sit down and go, okay, pack work, I had 6 different diviners I hit up. You had actually made 7.
Who?
7.
You, Malik?
Yes.
Yeah.
And each of them, it was, I had a list of questions written down that I did not share. I went in blind and then we built from there. Because if it was, it's always good to be like best 2 out of 3.
Yeah.
Right.
Or 4 out of 6 in that case. And I was getting clear signals that it was okay. Everything was okay. But had I gotten a maybe not, it would have been a very different conversation.
Yeah.
One of the things where community and death work really come in hand is advanced directives and living wills, living documents like that. And I say this as somebody that has talked about this for literally over a decade. It is hard to get that shit started because it's intimidating from the outside looking in. I have talked about it for years. I have yet to do it. I know I need to do it. Just let me say that up front. This is a process that I recommend, especially given the atmosphere we're in right now.
That reminds me, I need to redo my will. My will is wildly out of date. But yeah, please continue.
The thing of it is if you don't want to be buried a certain way, that must be in your will. It must be in your advanced directives. It must be noted. And you are probably going to have to reissue that document to any specialists you see. Because if for some fucking reason I tank at the endocrinologist office, they need to have something on file that says this is the reference document. Look at this. Yeah. Because if you keel over at the optometrist for some fucking reason and they don't have an advanced directive on you, they can't follow it. So they're going to contact your next of kin that's on file. And if you've been in the system forever and a day, like I have, my next of kin are my listed parents. Now, my parents and I are great. They're cool. They will respect my wishes. Not everybody has that.
Correct. Y'all, please keep talking. Speaking of like being true to ourselves and everything, I have got to go to the bathroom. I will be right back. Please.
No, piss yourself on camera. Increase the viewership. Ooh, this is a good point too. I want to point this out from Kat. Alternative death writing practices are a thing that are picking up steam. Yes. The death doula movement has been really cool to see grow. The green burial movement, which I think that one of the 2 of them started here in Michigan, or one of the first death cafes started here in Michigan, which is fabulous.
I told my parents, and it's something that I do need to get in writing, but I said, if you guys put me in a fucking box, I'm gonna haunt you. If I go before you do, and you put me in a box and I'm claustrophobic, I have not been in the closet in like 20 years, I will haunt you. Do not put me in a box. You will, it is either green burial, gift to science, or scatter my ashes. Those are your 3, but do not put me in a box.
Is to that end, speaking of funerary services and the like, you are going to want to specify 1 to 3 people who can do your last rites and are involved with your body care. If there are specific rituals that need to be done, if there are things that need to be done with your items, your sacred items, that needs to specifically be in your living will and your advanced directive care, because if you don't put those in writing, they will not get done. I can say that as working from the funeral industry. Because if your parents, for instance, opt to misgender you because you didn't make an advanced directive, there's nothing your loved ones can do. Likewise, if you wanted a green burial, but the quick and easy thing to do is just to burn you and get it over with, that is what's going to happen if you don't have these things on file.
All right. That is good to know.
I know it because I've seen it, because we've had to deal with the fallout at wakes and funerals of why the hell are they being displayed this way? Well, that's what I wanted to do. Well, that's not what they wanted. Da 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 da. And then somebody brings out the standard death certificate. Oh, it was the next of kin's choice, and the next of kin are genuine assholes.
Yeah. Although that does kind of raise up an interesting point of the dispersals of sacred items, and
yes,
it doesn't have to be a matter of death, like Malady.
No, yeah.
How? Because I have been going through. I know you can kind of see, despite being a maximalist and loving having all of the little accoutrements, there does come a time where things no longer want to be yours and they move on.
Right.
How do you work between the line between storage for later, donation, and gifting?
I legit, this is not me being a smartass, Marie Kondo that shit.
You're correct. I do the same thing too.
Well, and it's funny because if I remember correctly, Marie Kondo actually has training as a Shinto priestess.
Yes. She was a Miko.
Yeah.
And everyone bean souped her to death.
Yeah.
Me off.
What?
I see certain head tilting. So bean soup. There was a TikTok that a girl had made about a bean soup recipe that was really high in iron and all of this for people who have really bad menstrual cycles. And the interneted. So people were like, well, what if I don't like beans? What can I put into this? So just the very nitpicky, well, what if we don't have access to beans? And it's like, well,
I like pancakes. That means you hate waffles.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep. So that's why is it the bean soup people?
Yeah. And I'll be honest, at the time, because I didn't know shit about shit and I hadn't read a book and I hadn't watched the show, I was one of those bean soup people because I'm like, why the fuck would I get rid of all my books?
Mm-hmm.
Because what I got was a screenshot of one of the Netflix specials, and I was immediately turned off because I'm like, why the fuck are you making them get rid of the books? That's stupid. That's not what she was doing. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the dialogue, it turns out, was incredibly fucking racist.
Yep.
Yay.
I will say, as someone who also had, I don't want to say fallen for that because it was intentionally clipped that way and sent out.
Right.
Yeah.
Which
I fell for it. I'll cop to that. I mean, I fell for it.
Yeah.
As a small side note, as we circle back into this, one of the best things that I have learned, especially in today's age, is that if you see a headline or a picture or something that makes you feel some type of way, that means you really need to look up what actually it's talking about, because the sensationalism and the feelings that it brings is intentional.
Yeah.
Yep. All that.
Circling back to the question of what do we do with sacred objects in terms of when it's time to put them on, when it's time to put them away, and when it's time to retire them entirely, or keep them, obviously, because if you're using them, keep them, obviously. I have recently been, for a variety of reasons, gifting a lot of sacred objects, including Sarah, I believe you have very close to you physically at least one of the idols that I gifted to you recently. I believe
he's around here. Oh,
the
here
big,
he is.
The big prayer stick is around, which is absolutely an innuendo. It is 100% intentional on his
It's a bean.
Yep.
With spikes.
Yeah.
Freyr, ribbed for your pleasure.
That's not even that's just true. Like that's just
So that's why they have the corn and wheat stalks.
Yep.
PIE people make do.
So brain words go. There is a lot to that, and a lot of that is a conversation with the object in question for me, right? Animism means that anything can be ensouled, and these objects for me are always awakened, right? They are always awake, and they will always tell me what they want. Now, with enlivened objects, like that idol, that's a complicated question. Is it the object or is it the god speaking? That's a complicated question that isn't super relevant because the answer is yes, and also it doesn't matter because you're still listening to the object speaking and doing what it tells you to do, more or less, right? Because it's telling you what it wants. I tend to hear objects quite well. Excuse me. That's actually kind of a thing I'm known for in the community I run in. That said, I still confirm with divination when I can. But not everyone does. And so divination is your go-to here, right? Because that's a surefire way, as long as you have a reliable divination method. And please make sure your divination methods are reliable. That's just please
also,
do that.
Hit up a buddy, because sometimes your buddy needs help towards rent, and you can do that by giving them $25 for an hour of their time.
Exactly.
30. I don't know what your current charge is, but
Yeah.
And Sarah,
I charge $100 for 2 hours.
Yeah. My current rate is I forget. Because I was running a sale. Now I'm not running a sale, but I was running the sale for long enough that I forgot what my original price was, and I have to do math about it. It's a whole thing.
That's fair. Also, as a quick side note, Sarah, I've had one of your readings. They're terrifying. Thank you.
You're welcome.
With love and respect, and it was an amazing reading. But
Yeah.
the iron runes are hands down one of the most terrifying things I've ever seen in my life.
I used to get readings from those once a month.
Because you're a masochist. I don't know how to tell you this.
I mean, this is, you know what, incidentally, this is actually something that is an active football in my pondering as to, for instance, who these iron runes go to when I'm dead.
Yeah.
Because I don't feel like they need to be buried with me, but these are like, I gotta be careful about who I give these to.
No, absolutely. And similarly, right, like you and I, Sarah, have had very serious conversations in recent weeks about like, hey, so there's some teachings. I am an uncle in your family
Right.
tree, right? Non-binary, but that's fine. I serve.
We're still figuring out appropriate verbiage for it because most of the non-binary options make me hurt.
Yeah, they're awful.
What?
Huh?
Nibbling?
You don't want to be a nibbling?
Nibbling doesn't bother me, but I'm not a nibbling. I'm the opposite end of that. That's uncle is the worst thing I think I might have ever heard in my life.
Listen, I just speak with auntie, but it's got to be pronounced auntie because I don't want to be an aunt.
Yeah, I'm actually okay with auntie. That would be fine. But also, I'm mask coded, and most of my spirit work is mask. So it doesn't super work. But we'll deal with that when we get to it. But
Baby
very
girl,
genuinely,
put on your glitter.
But no, this is a really good point though, because not only are we talking about like who do I give these objects to when I'm dead? Well, I don't give them to any. Well, actually, anyway,
Yeah.
That's neither here nor there.
Yeah,
you know,
who are you going to down the line?
Who gets to teach my kids? Who gets to continue my lineage? Who gets to, and I mean lineage in terms of spirit work, right? Because I've got one apprentice right now. That's it.
Yep.
And I love him dearly, but he wouldn't open his mouth. He is a lovely, lovely person, but he is not suited to public spirit work yet.
Yep.
And I hope he gets there that's a whole other conversation. But my obligation to him is also, let's say I die tomorrow, who continues his training? Who do I trust to help him out?
Yeah.
You know, obviously his wife is amazing and can definitely do the work. But that's a hard road to hoe.
Yeah. And also, like, at least one of your kids is very clearly spiritually inclined.
Right.
And also will not fucking listen to you. I love you dearly. Absolutely. You cannot be their teacher.
No, not in this regard.
100%.
No. I need to be their parent first, foremost, and always.
Yep.
And if you tried to be their spirit work teacher, it would go badly.
Yep.
It would be
Like,
funny, but it'd go bad.
It would be deeply funny for everyone else.
Yeah. I was gonna say for literally everybody else. Like, don't do the thing, goes and does the thing. God fucking damn it.
Right. And also, please do the thing, will not do the thing. Like, 100% is your child, should not be your student.
No. And I think writ large that is true of most spiritual specialists. Yeah.
I would agree.
For everyone outside of the household.
Right.
Yeah.
Like,
and this is actually one of the things where I think so. For those who are unaware, in many, if not all, Germanic cultures, the teaching of trades and specialties was often done uncle to nephew.
Yep. Not father to son.
Not father to son. In fact, in many of these cultures, the relationship between uncle and nephew was closer than that of father and son.
Yep.
And these were very patriarchal cultures, so that's the terms we're talking in.
To the point where they would send the kid away for literally years to apprentice and learn.
Yeah. And as the person who is fulfilling an uncle role in your family, in that, and I mean that in that Germanic sense,
yep.
Certainly not as close as I frankly should be, but I live several hours away. But you know,
it's also not medieval Europe, my friend.
It is also that. Ask my spirits if they care.
They don't, and I get it because mine don't either. They're like, well, they should be over more often. Motherfucker. Gas money.
They have to take care of their meat suit.
Yeah.
Right.
It includes food, housing, and gas.
Yeah. And so there's some very serious conversations that Sarah and I need to have about, like, okay, which of these objects are going to you and or your kids?
Right. The Iron Runes, for instance, would need to be a time, if it was going to go to my kids, it would have to be after you receive the training, possibly initiate, well, no, not possibly with these, initiations and divination.
Yeah. 100%. You know, if I pass on, there are even just single objects. If I pass on a string of bells that I have, both of you have heard those bells in person.
Take those with you.
Yes, also that. 100% that. Those aren't.
Please be buried with those.
Yeah, no, those are not leaving my possession.
I want to know if you're coming, so I'm going to wrap those fuckers around your ankles.
That's another thing that might actually be coming from you very shortly, is I actually need more bells on my spirit work garb, because that's a thing.
Wow, you get to dance effeminately as a Freyr priest? Weird. It's almost
Shocker.
like there's historical precedence for this.
I'm astounded by this.
The clatter of unmanly bells. Thank you, Saxo Grammaticus.
Yeah. But yeah, but like, if I tried to pass those on, the amount of things that I would have to do and teach to whoever those got passed on to is like, that's not a thing that I can do in an afternoon.
Sometimes the thing is just not.
Yeah.
It gets buried with you, it dies with you.
Yeah.
And it becomes a really interesting artifact for somebody 1,000 years down the road to
100%.
figure out.
Just imagine.
It's a ritual
1,000
object.
years. They dig it up and they start jingling, and it's like, I feel like I'm surrounded by something revelrous. Why do I have a sudden need to drink and dance?
And not stop.
Is that a fire over there? I think I need to go throw it back. Hang on.
Mai Tai for me. Thank you.
Yeah, no, but 100%. And that's really the thing, though. It's like these things come with, they don't. Speaking of community, they're not just objects. They come with obligation.
Like the necklace I accidentally made you. Because
Accidentally.
I bought a bunch of beads and went, oh, this is Malik shaped. There you go, buddy.
So the thing that I continuously come back to is, if this object is a spirit, and generally speaking, because of our circles, they are.
Yes.
Yeah.
A lot of the extraneous circles we run in, when it comes to this is an object, is it enlivened? The answer is usually yes. If you're in animist or polytheist circles, the answer is usually yes.
Yeah.
This is enlivened in some fashion. So what do? Do you respectfully discard it? Do you respectfully burn it or break it? What's the protocol? That's the other thing you got to leave behind. That's the other portion of the responsibility is, if there is a procedure, you need to fucking tell somebody. Because if you don't, in all likelihood, some poor jackass is going to pick this up at a thrift store and it's going to get haunted.
Yeah. I genuinely, like, there's...
I'm sorry, Hawke, did I call you out?
There is a thrift shop by me where sometimes I'll dream of it for days on end, and then I'll go in and I'll walk up and I'll be like, I'll take you home and find out where you gotta belong. Because I am the river in which things flow to who they're supposed to belong to.
We all are.
Which means I have never been able to hold on to most jewelry, crystals, ritual pieces, bones, you name it. Usually I get it and I'm like, look, it's so pretty. And then it's, all right, this goes to you. And genuinely, I'm happy to do so because I like taking care of my community. But sometimes that's just expensive.
Yeah,
I get it. I get it. I have seen some of the offerings that have come before Freya. Some of them I've given, and went, damn, her ladyship has expensive taste. I love Freya. I love Freya deeply, utterly. Holy fuck.
On this note, like, Sarenth, how many bones have you passed out to people on your birthday, my birthday, Hawke's birthday, Yule, random gathering, Samhain, just...
I don't know.
Yeah, I remember, I think one of the first birthdays for yours I went to, you just walked past here you go, wolf knuckle. Okay.
At this point in my life, I've probably literally given out multiple hundreds, if not thousands of dollars worth of bones.
Yes.
Me with crystals, man. I get you.
I feel you. I feel you right here because it's not mine.
Yeah.
It's not mine. That's the thing. I'm a new fire tender.
So this is very funny. So I was running a ritual.
Uh-huh.
And Emily Black Cat was tending the fire for that ritual. And Sarenth, as Black Cat says, Sarenth proceeds to give me half the shit in their kit. Literally, and I was annoyed about this. I'm no longer annoyed, but I was annoyed about this. Sarenth is literally like, everything has to stop. I am giving all of these sacred objects to your fire tender. And I'm like, dude, I'm trying to run a ritual here.
Sometimes the spirits have their own agenda. I'm sorry.
I kind of yelled at your spirits about it. It's fine. We came to terms. They're not going to do it again. Because I'll just shout about it until everyone's upset.
So in this, I am curious, Sarenth, because you said, you get things and you're like, this isn't mine. Okay. So for me personally,
right.
My mom is the same way. We have always been healers of some kind. We give out crystals, books. During shutdown in 2020, we had contacts that got extra food, and so we made sure it got to places it needed to be. My youngest sibling has a friend who is one of 10. Another one who is one of 6. And so we were making sure that any um, breads, baked goods, anything extra that came to us. We were a hub that made sure it got out to where it needed to go. Is that something that you kind of had?
So I accidentally muted myself. Yeah, it is something I had. This is one of the things that's so liberating and frustrating about being a spirit worker is sometimes the spirits just kind of come in and go, look, we know you love this thing, and we're happy that you love this thing, but it's actually not yours. You've been working and empowering it and getting it ready for somebody else. And if we had told you that from the start, you might not have done all the things you need to do with it. I have had spirits pull a fast one on me like this before. Also, that's really goddamn funny.
Side note, yeah. So Sarenth, one of the sacred objects that was passed to Cat during this ritual was a sacred pipe, which Sarenth had been taking care of and had not cleaned. Like, very genuinely, I cleaned it. You had not cleaned it in years. The amount that I got yelled at to yell at you about cleaning your fucking pipes while I was cleaning.
I have since been much, much better.
Which I'm very glad for, because I'm not getting yelled at anymore to yell at you. Thank you.
You're welcome. Hey, I do occasionally fucking listen. Oh, that's also another thing about some of these sacred objects, right? Like, you actually sometimes got to actually take them out and fucking use them.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like part of the whole keeping them alive process, and part of the keeping them in community, not just keeping yourself in community with them, but like, it's really nice if my let's look around here. My Mjolnir, it looks really fucking pretty above my head, but if I never actually bring it out for a ritual use, am I actually honoring the object's purpose?
It's the fine china dilemma.
Yes.
Because my mom has my great grandmother's fine china, and she's like, it can only be brought out for fancy things, and I was like, no, bring
motherfucker, I'm not fancy.
Out for dinner,
right?
So
that
was
was
exactly what you're talking about.
Well, that was something that drove me crazy, because like, motherfucker, I'm not fancy. Like, I will invite people over, but the shit that I put out for the spread is going to be like peasant food, dude. I am not a fancy motherfucker.
Hey, listen, I love the pizza you get. Thank you.
I'm glad for that, because it's either pizza or barbecue or some variation thereof.
I can't.
I'm sorry, I come from a middle class background. A whole fucking pig, yeah.
A whole fucking pig. I can't say shit. I did a whole goat like in 3 ways.
So angry, I fucking missed that.
I'm so mad for you. I'm really hoping you can make it to Lupercalia this year.
I'm making it to Lupercalia, hell or high water.
Thank you. Very genuinely thank you. Because if not, then I'm just going to have a mini session with you at some point. It'll be great. And by that, I mean both of us will weep openly.
Understood.
This is a scary one, too.
This is the scary one. Last year was bad. Yeah, y'all, I started a whole ass LLC about moving items onto places they're supposed to go. I need to figure out what to do with them soon.
And I provided you a good amount of inventory. Speaking of letting things go,
right.
As soon as Black Hat was like, oh, I'm doing this, and I was like, do I have a carload for you?
Honestly, it kind of reminds me, and for those who've gone to Convocation, you'll understand this reference. It kind of reminds me of Mara's International House of Stuff that gets donated every year to Convocation.
It's me.
For the raffle.
I'm the new Mara.
You are the new
I have
Mara.
all of the stuff.
I'm genuinely going to donate a bunch, and some of them are silly, like a tin sign that I picked up in Hawaii as a kid that says clothing optional beyond this point, which fucking pagans will go nuts for, right? That will be very fun.
Mm-hmm.
And then some of them will be like, no, this is an object and you should pay attention to that.
Really quick, another example of living in communities. So when you bring a gift for a friend, right? So Diana and Cinti brought me this, which is Smirnoff Zero Sugar Infusions. It's a lemon and elderflower.
Ooh.
That sounds delightful.
It's a 30% alcohol by volume. Stuff like this, like to a certain degree, like we can talk all day about like there is no ethical consumption under capitalism, and some people use that as a fig leaf, and some people like genuinely do their best to not consume. But whatever way you take that, if you're going to bring something to somebody, like it needs to be something that actually is a gift that they're actually going to use, they're actually going to consume, they're actually going to integrate into their lives. If I bring somebody premium, like handcrafted, roasted, the whole 9 peanut butter, and they're fucking allergic to it, I'm not giving them a gift.
Right.
And some of these spiritual objects, we had to be a little fucking judicious about how we hand this shit out.
No, 100%.
Because it's the equivalent of handing a peanut butter allergist, or not allergist, but somebody with a peanut butter allergy.
We're handing off grenades.
Right.
You are. Right,
and because I've seen a lot of alivened items between both of you, and then I have some of my own where I've used a couple of them as grounding bags. And I don't know, Sarah, if you had held one of mine, but Malik has. I have a grounding.
You made me a grounding kit out of beads.
Yeah.
Yep, I have those, and then I have a ripcord kit, which will kick a god out of you.
Right.
So, it is being very cognizant of what you have, what it does, and how it's going to affect the person you hand it to. Because there are some people where I was like, you're not allowed to touch this unless needed.
Yeah. No, like if you hand someone who is deeply, for example, someone that I do a significant amount of spirit work with, does a huge amount with the good neighbors. They have a mild iron allergy. Especially when they're deep in spirit work, if you hand them a piece of solid iron, they will break out in hives. That's not a thing. I can't just give them enlivened iron objects.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, if I use enlivened iron objects around them, they twitch, and not in a fun way. Like, oh,
yeah.
Right? I warned them before I use those objects. Why? Several of the bells on a non-revelry related item are iron.
Okay, I got you.
Yeah, right. Non-revelry related. It matters. Several of the bells on a non-revelry related item are iron. I ring those bells and they damn near jump out of their skin unless I warn them. And then when I warn them,
at that point, it's fucking working.
Wait, no, I know.
Yes, there are barometers too.
Alec,
yeah.
The cloth cast one.
Yeah.
You're gonna have to do a little bit of experimentation with that. There is flavors of iron and bells on those.
That tracks with how it was made, and yeah.
It's one of those, it's popping in my head because as I'm picking out colors, I'm not thinking about things. I'm like, ooh, pretty color, matches. And now I'm thinking about it, I'm like, fuck.
Well,
sorry if you don't, really quick.
Yes.
The way something is made is also really fucking important because this iron staff was made in a sacred manner, but more to the point, some of the things that are included in it, not only is it iron, it's other metals.
Yeah.
When you're sewing something, if the thing is iron that you're sewing with, if it's steel or if it's iron,
that matters.
If somebody's got the iron allergy, you need to switch to brass.
Yep.
Yes.
Or bone.
Or bone. Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense, especially given the templates that I sent you. A lot of them were iron based. And that's not a problem for me or any of the spirits that I actually cannot say that anymore. Most of the spirits.
I was gonna say, motherfucker.
I literally talked about that at the beginning of the show. Anyway,
yeah.
For most of the spirits that I work with, and for the one, it's not a huge. It's a distaste, not an allergy. So, fun fact about the good neighbors is that iron is not an allergy for all of them.
It's not universal.
It's not universal, and for many of the most powerful among them, highest ranked, highest strength is probably a better way to frame that.
That's a much better way to frame that.
For many of the highest strength among them, it's not a problem at all.
Yeah.
And for some, like for example, red caps historically, iron doesn't bother them at all. They wear iron shoes.
The other thing to keep in mind is that iron's not a universal allergy, period.
Yeah.
Just like holy water and crosses aren't.
Right.
Yep.
So
they're not part of that schema. You're just throwing water.
it's something that one of my Patreon members actually asked to have me write an article for this month. So that'll come out in like 2 weeks. There are spirits that are, you throw iron at them and their magic goes to absolute shit, but you're also going to find them wielding it.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Also, the whole iron thing is really complicated because it has changed over time. Because
oh yeah,
right, cold iron as it was originally.
Cold iron is literally iron with like an edge.
Yeah, it literally means what are they allergic to? Murder. That's what that meant.
Weird. Turns out people are allergic to being stabbed.
Right.
You know, I think that kind of tracks. We'll have to ask the anthropologist about that one.
like Morgan Daimler talks about this. Like cold iron is literally edged weapons.
Yep, that's what that now.
Weird. It's like when people die when you kill them.
Yeah, people die when you kill them. Who knew? It's like the vampires. They're allergic to a stake in the heart. Really?
Everybody is, motherfucker.
I am shocked by this revelation. It turns out I would also not be happy if you put a wooden stake through my heart.
What's really funny about that is that actually can relate back to, thank you, Lakuto, Draugr. Because it's not the stake through the heart. You're pinning them to the ground so they can't get up.
Yep. As Kat says, there is iron on blood. Red caps dye their hats in blood. They kind of develop an immunity from exposure. Yes. The whole Fey iron thing is
way overplayed.
It's overplayed, but it's also very complicated. Right? It is not a simple one-to-one.
Do you want to insult them? Chuck an iron bar at them.
Yeah.
Which is why I said to do some experiments, because I am a fox, which means I am part cat, part dog. And the cat part of me goes, push, push, push. Oh, that went over the edge. All right. So the next time, push, push. All right, it's at the edge. Next thing.
Oh, Terry Pratchett makes fun of the cold iron thing. The guy looks at the story and is like, nope, don't feel fearful yet.
Yeah. What's the Hogfather quote? He gives a child a sword, and the parents are like, "Well, what if she cuts herself? Like, you can't give that to a child. You know, it's a good lesson. What if she hurts herself? Then it's a good lesson."
Exactly.
So this is actually like funny enough. I'm going to relate this back to community and death work. Community and death work is this kind of death work doesn't make sense without community. Community doesn't make sense without death work, because ultimately, if you're not doing the work, go ahead, come here.
I was just checking.
I'm good on water. Thank you. Ultimately, the community aspect of death work is a necessity, because if you don't do the work, somebody else is going to have to. So the community part is going to get done. It's just a question of how much horse shit is somebody else going to have to deal with because you didn't plan to have your shit dealt with.
Well, and that goes back to like Hawke was talking about with people who don't have any loved ones and they end up in paupers' graves. Yeah, that's the government doing the community part.
Right. That is the bare merely because nobody else will do it.
Yeah, that is the ultimate fallback of, you are part of no other community than the one that you pay taxes to. Okay, we'll take care of it.
The worst
won't
insult,
be pretty, won't be good, but it will be done.
The worst insult was to be thrown out into the wilderness.
Yeah.
One of the things that Antigone is about in particular is because Antigone comes about in no small part because her brother, and I can't remember his name, I think it's H something or another. His brother goes off and does something the king completely disagrees with and refuses to bury him And this is such an insult that Antigone, he says, I will put anybody to death who tries to bury this motherfucker. And Antigone ignores his wishes, goes out, buries him with honey and with dirt, and is later killed for it. Antigone is a tragedy, in
I was
part
gonna
because
say, is that the one Shakespeare play that's super controversial?
no, I'm talking about a Greek play.
Okay, cool. Never.
It might be. I'm not very up on my Shakespeare. It might be a Shakespearean play as well, but the one that I'm talking about was written
It's not.
eons ago.
No. This is Titus Andronicus is the
No, it
Shakespeare
is not that. No.
Yep. I always forget the name of that one, and that's a whole rant for the
Whole different thing.
Yeah.
No, Antigone, in no small part, it is a tragedy in part because King Cleon is so implacable in the face of his duty as a king that he forgets his duty as a person, and he gets lost in the sauce of what is his wish versus what is the king role, which is part of why Antigone ends up killing herself, and why his own son slays himself. And there's this whole series of events that is just fucking horrid and tragic. In no small part brought about because he refused to honor the dead in the proper way. And so somebody said, somebody has to do this. You don't want your descendants to have to deal with your horse shit any more than they already have to, because nobody gets out of here without trauma and nobody gets out alive. And part of our portion to being a good ancestor is to reduce the trauma, increase the healing, and to make shit as easy to transition as possible.
Yeah.
So as we talk about community and death work, that's where my head's at. What can I do to be a better ancestor?
I'm going to say something that is going to upset some people, and I'm going to say it anyway.
Go ahead.
Your duty to your dead is not, how to phrase this. I'm going to try to phrase this as in a way that
Thank you, Jason.
Yeah. So Sophocles wrote Antigone, as Kat says, and Polynices is the brother. He fought with Argus against Thebes.
Thank you so much. I did this play back when I was in high school, and I fucking love it still.
Yeah.
Please continue now. Sorry.
Yeah. No, you're fine. Your duty to your dead does not necessarily end because they were assholes.
Yes.
But no.
But
clarification. That does not mean that you owe the asshole dead, and I'm going to just call them that. Right, you do not owe an abuser in life the same things that you owe someone who is beloved to you. But it is still your duty to do at least enough for them that they do not become someone else's problem or your problem later.
Don't turn your ancestors into
revenants.
Don't turn your dead into revenants, into hungry ghosts, into Draugr.
Yeah, right.
Correct. Death work for me, at least, has been a lot of yes and no and when it comes to a lot of things. Because, like I said, I come from a long line of self-destructive alcoholics.
Right.
So one of the things that I do is I do work with them. I do love them. I give them water and light. I give them coffee, but they do not get alcohol.
Yeah.
If I offer alcohol, it is to a specific spirit on a specific day, and that's it. So I don't turn them away.
Right.
But I don't feed into the cycles that destroyed them in life.
Yes.
I would like to say something as a compliment to you. For those of you whose ancestors have struggled with alcoholism and you have a positive relationship with alcohol, you are in the process of doing immense healing for your families, and that needs to be recognized. Because the fact that you can actually imbibe alcohol without going to the dark places they did means that you are a living link of healing ancestry.
Mm-hmm. And I I will say there are some in my family who just abstain, period.
Which is completely fair.
Oh, for sure. And I would never, 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 never pressure them into doing it. But it is something that I have also had to recognize that between too much and none, it is good to have a bridge that's in the middle. And if I can be that bridge, it means after I'm gone, I am still serving my community.
Right.
And there's as Sarah, thank you. Also, I owe you and don't owe you. Am still pondering the article on that I promised you like a year ago.
Yeah.
I'll get to it eventually. Frankly, it's not even. It's one of those things where I don't even know what the fuck to say. I know there is plenty to say, but I don't know what to say.
Your time.
Yeah. And I'm not going to do it on anyone else's because it is mine too. As the adult child of alcoholics, which is quite literally a brand of Trump.
Yep.
No, I take that very seriously. I have actually had to, when my grandmother died, my grandfather, who was her husband, came back and started causing problems for me. And not immediately, but
damn near. Excuse me.
No, because that's not quite true. But pretty close to immediately. After I started doing spirit work, because it was, oh, you're paying attention. I'm here.
Oh, this is something that a lot of newbie ancestor workers, spirit workers get as like. Speaking of obligation to community, warn motherfuckers about this. If you are a spirit worker or if you're somebody that does death work, when you start paying attention to the dead, they start paying attention to you. Sorry,
you are the flare in the dark.
Yep. And it was very much oh, you're paying attention. Neat. I want things. You will give them to me. If you don't, I will be a problem. Then, thankfully, I had other ancestors who stepped forward and said, we will take care of this for you if you ask us to. And I said, yes, please. And they did. And he has not shown up since, which I'm very grateful for because I do love him. And also he was a right bastard in life. And he was going to be a problem that I was not ready to handle at the time. Frankly, I wouldn't want to tackle that now if I didn't have to. That's a thing that I think needs to be said more is like, just because you can do something doesn't mean you want to. And like, don't invite more fucking problems for yourself. Like, I can and do handle a lot of problems as a spirit worker. I've handled problems for both of you.
Right.
I don't want to and will not if I don't have to.
Honestly, that's a responsible community response, right? And when you're talking about death work, especially with ancestors who did horrible shit, racist shit, like there is a point at which you cannot compensate for the wrongs they did in life because that's to borrow an overused term, that is their karma, not yours.
Yeah.
Yes.
You do not need to borrow their shit to handle your own white guilt or to handle your own white privilege.
Yeah.
You have your own shit to deal with, and especially because I've seen so much spiritual bypassing, but I've also seen so much spiritual stagnation because people get to the stage of reckoning with whiteness and they stop. Yep. And that's not what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
If you are reckoning with the horrible racist shit your ancestors did, you have to move beyond.
Mm-hmm. I will put in this little
please do
tidbit. I am able to do the work now because my mom was the first to break the cycle. So when I say I come from a long lines, my mom was the one who went, we're stopping here. And that gave me the tools that I needed to continue the work.
Yeah.
Right.
And then as for what you were saying with you going through, so like I have living and dead family members that are cops. I do not pay their cosmic debt.
That's not yours to fucking pay.
It is not mine. That they made choices. There are consequences and repercussions for everybody, including them. What I can do while they're going through that is offer them a place on the altar. I can offer them love and water and a place to rest, but I will not, or I cannot, and I will not shoulder that burden for them.
Well, and the other thing you can offer them very genuinely is a way to pay off that debt.
If they listen.
Yeah, that's a big fucking if.
I said,
I do a lot of broad strokes things unless someone comes to me specifically and it's like, hey, Hawke. And I'm like, cool. You ready to be uncomfortable?
Well, and this is a thing you see a lot of. Like it's one of the things that shows up with the Wild Hunt, right? Is the in Christian terms, the sinful dead, people who have done horrible things in life can work off that debt by riding with the Wild Hunt and doing rightful actions.
This is actually one of the functions traditionally of the Sin Eater, is to help you not only pay your sin off, but it's also because they probably have a pretty goddamn checkered past too, and they would like to not go to hell.
Yeah, right. So it's and that is a choice they have to make, right? I say that. I don't think everyone who rides with the Wild Hunt had a choice in that. I think the Wild Hunt will absolutely conscript.
Oh people. No! I mean, there's
Wild
plenty.
Hunt's been a Wild Hunt.
They're going to do what they're going to do.
Stories where they just sweep people up because they just happen to be in the way.
But also that's not my business. I mean, caveat: I'm not a god who's leading the Wild Hunt, so that's not my business on who to sweep up.
Like this is actually, if you don't mind me, just like a really quick caveat to a lot of this stuff is it your responsibility? Are you actually in charge, or are you peripheral to it? And I think this is where a lot of dialogue in pagan circles and heathen circles, left and right, gets this shit wrong. Because if my God does something stupid or does something fucked up, it is not on me to apologize to them. It's just to recognize they did a fucked up thing. I get this a lot with Odin, so I grok it inherently. Because, what he did to Rind was fucked up. What he did for that Wild Hunt where he swept people up was fucked up. But that's not my business. That is between you and Odin if you want to hash that shit out.
That is...
Hades is my dad. And I get people who are like, cool, Hades. And some people are like, Hades? And I'm like, you handle you. I see you. I respect you. I know all of the myths. And I know the different interpretations, and I'm not going to tell you how to live your life, but he's my dad.
Yeah.
And the Hades that you may interact with is what, I can say this 10 toes down with my full chest. The Hades I see is very different from most people because he's my dad.
Yeah. Yes, that.
No, I get that 100%. Like, as an Odinson who you can look at the screen, I do not have that in the name right now. It is in my blog. It is in my email. It is in my TikTok.
Because it's a pain in the ass to change your email and usernames.
Well, it is that, but also even if it wasn't, I probably wouldn't. And that's for complicated.
I'm just joshing.
No, I know, but it is a serious thing though, right? Where it
absolutely is.
It is a thing, and I wrote a whole blog post about it, and it was genuinely for me, it was a reckoning moment with multiple aspects of my community, because Sarenth being one of them, there are many people in my community, and I'm not going to go into the details because that's not my story to tell. Not entirely. There are parts of it that are mine to tell, but not all of it is, and I'm not going to tell that without explicit permission from the parties involved. I'm not going to do that. I'm not calling anyone out. I'm just not going to do that. But there are members of my community who I'm very close with who have a deep and connected relationship, who are Odin's children in absolutely the same sense that I am, and have a deep and connected relationship with him. And I was afraid, genuinely. I actually had to be actively drunk before I went to those members of the community with that. I published the post, and then a few days later, while still in the midst of my feelings, got drunk and then posted it to them and was like, hey, this is what's going on with me. I am afraid to bring this to you. I had to be drunk to do this because I did not have the courage to otherwise, which is not a healthy place to be. I'm better now, but that's not the point.
Can I just say really quick?
Yeah.
Even if you needed liquid courage, that is still courage.
It is. But also it is a thing that I am not proud of. I am not mad at myself that I did that, but I am also not proud of it. It is a thing that I wish I had not needed, but it is a thing that I needed and I accept that. Complicated relationships with alcohol as the child of alcoholics. And long line of alcoholics. But regardless, my relationship with Odin is such that he is my father, and I acknowledge that. And also, we don't talk. I'm not mad at him anymore, but we don't talk. I know that that will change at some point when I am ready, and I know that it is waiting on me to be ready. But we're not there yet, and I'm not asking for any change right now. And I know I can see him tapping on the back of your head, and
I know. I am stopping this before this becomes a thing.
Yeah, thank you.
If you need that,
we will talk.
We'll talk.
Yeah.
And I am saying that for him as well, for him to back off.
Yeah.
This is also where obligation, responsibility, community, and death work is also really important, because if there isn't somebody to take this particular role in the community, this can become an ongoing problem.
Yeah.
Because
absolutely.
if a spirit is really intrusive, it may not be, oh, they just want to fuck shit up. Oh, they want to make a problem. Like, I get this with Loki a lot because people like to cast Loki in a very Marvel role. But like sometimes he is the unquiet thought because you haven't been fucking thinking.
Yeah.
And likewise with Othin, sometimes he is the one that brings the nastiest revelations to you because he's been there and has had to think down those lines. Because what if all creation hinged on you killing your kid? And then all the other stuff kind of like crystallizes and makes sense for why he does what he does.
You read that myth I wrote for you, didn't you?
No.
You need
That's from him.
Okay, you need to post haste.
Okay, I will as soon as I am more sober for this shit.
Yeah.
But
understandable. Have a nice day.
Thank you. The thing with a lot of the cyclical myths, the myths that we are inhabiting, and I really want to emphasize that we as heathens, as pagans, as polytheists, as animists, are inhabiting. Because this is not just a thing that our gods went through. It is something that we are concurrently going through with them because we are woven with them.
Yep.
We are part of their cycle now.
Yeah.
Not circle, cycle.
Cycles move forward. Circles move in concert.
Right. And so therefore, this is where some of our power as human beings, because sometimes the gods can get stuck in their grooves. And we present this interesting element being that we are not unmoored from earth or from weird, but we are part of it. We're part of it, but we are also not beholden in the same fashion.
We're wild cards.
We're definitely wild cards. And the thing is like your wild card in this lifetime might just be, I have a better relationship with alcohol than my previous generation. And that might be one aspect of your life that is really, really important for your ancestors. And then for your community, it might be, I am a sober mind that people can come to when divination questions are really hard and all the other methods have failed.
Yeah.
The community and death work that really impacts people is being in the moment with them. It is not necessarily that we are skilled at bringing the spirits in. It is that we are skilled at setting the space so the spirits can be present with the person in front of us. I have had stone cold atheists tell me ghost stories because I am a place where they can express this and not be judged.
Yep.
I work in a building full of engineers, I get you.
Yep. And as Kat says, goosebumps, right? There's Okay,
I think that was with regard to the myth, but yeah, honestly, like the whole of it, right? And I
Yeah.
know we're coming up on the 2 hour mark. Oh, we're beyond the 2 hour mark. Excuse
we're
me.
beyond the 2 hour mark.
But-
I was going to say, let's hit some closing thoughts and save the rest of this for the after party. Closing
Absolutely. Hawke,
thoughts.
please
You
go
first.
ahead.
You're the guest.
So my closing thoughts would be, if you see someone in your community struggling, help them. Because I have seen both with Sarenth and my mother, people who put their all into their community, doing service, doing help, and no one pouring into them. And that's not to say like we ignore people, but you know, if you only have one person pouring into a fountain, it can't refill. Yeah. Another one would be, yes, please be careful when working, even with your familial dead. I am always available to help. I am usually around places.
Really quick, because I don't want to get overwhelmed if people want to reach out to you as a result of the recording. What are your office hours? How can they reach you?
I will provide a email. And I am between like 10 and 10 most days. I have the beginnings of a blog. It's getting there.
We have a resources channel on the 3-pot server. We will post either blog or email at Hawke's discretion in there. There are other resources in there that are also good to reach out to.
Yep. And also, if I cannot help you, I generally know a guy.
Yes.
So, and in final closing, because I know this is 3, thank you for humoring me. I would say, even though we are part of our God's cycles, we are not our gods.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
That's too much responsibility for one person.
It's just as we don't have to shoulder the weight and the burdens of our family, be them close dead, beloved dead, ancestral dead. We do not have to carry the burdens of our gods. Recently, I have become, I am doing initiations of to be a priest of Fenrir, a water carrier to bring hope. Some of my besties are Odinsons. You're not tied to the same cycles as our gods are.
No.
Very, very true. Sarenth, go for it. Shoot off.
Your responsibility to the community doesn't start with only yourself. It starts with your community. It starts with the things that you agree to, the oaths that you keep, and the being that you are. If you are acting contrary to your fate, there are things that will be corrective in your life. And rather than fight against that, this is not a linear thing, I should point out. This is about you as a person. If you are not meant to carry something, you need to feel that in your bones and let it go. And as much as you can, hold that with non-judgment. As much as you can, ask your community to hold you in non-judgment, because just because you've been holding up this, that, or the other doesn't mean that you should have been the person doing this all along. Maybe you were supposed to be training your replacement. Long story short, the obligations that you carry with your community are mutual. The relationship that you hold in death work with your community is mutual. The community is mutual. This is why it's community, not person, not individual. You are in community. And I really want to emphasize that, especially as we go into really challenging times, is that drilling down into who you hold in community is going to be deeply important. And what obligations, responsibilities you hold need to be talked out, because this culture is really shit at doing that. And I really hope that as things move forward, not only does each person who's hearing this, who's listening to this, have some grace with themselves, but also has some grace with the communities, because our communities need to relearn how to be communities.
Absolutely. I would say that breaking cycles is important. Not all cycles are bad, but breaking cycles is important. I say that as an Odinson who doesn't talk to their father. I say that as the adult child of alcoholic parents. I say that as someone who has had to actively banish generations of dead from my life. And I could not do that on my own. It took me calling on ancestors who are greater than me to do that in concert, but all the same, that is not something I did alone.
And
That
you
is
did amazing. I'm proud of you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That is something I'm actively proud of. And that is a thing that that is a story for another time, probably for after party, but all the same. Breaking cycles is important. However, recognizing cycles is as important as breaking them. You cannot break what you do not recognize, and you cannot recognize what you need to break if you do not. You cannot recognize the difference between what you need to break and what you need to keep if you do not recognize the cycles that you are a part of. And with that, we're going to end. Thank you all so much for being here. We've been here for almost 2.25 hours. I'm so sorry for how long this went. I apologize for being late.
Nah, you're good.
The after party. I have already decided I'm almost certainly going to call in tomorrow because work is not important to me, as is community.
Let the anti-capitalism flow.
All right. Love you all. Have a wonderful night, and we will see you in the after party if we see you. If not, we will see you next time on Three Pagans on Tap.